Okay, meeting is being recorded. So we'll go back to, let's see, speaker view. There we go. And then that went away. Now I'll bring it back over here. All right, so I have, do you guys want to do this with these carburetors?
Sure.
What are we
Okay.
doing?
All right, same thing we did, but these are the Marvel Shoveler carburetors. So I have two different ones here. I have the MA3A, and I think this is the MA3SPA. Yay, MA3SPA. So you can look at them. I'll put them kind of going the same way, and should be able to see what the difference is between the two of them.
The diameter.
Actually, that's just an illusion, but good job.
The wire.
Whatever's off on the left side. Is that mixture control?
That is the accelerator pump.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at that one, since that has more going on. The MA3A, the one I just moved aside, it's a little bit, the air passages inside are a little bit different, but otherwise it's reasonably the same. But this one is interesting because it has the accelerator pump. So one of the things Mark mentions is, hey, I'm used to seeing a spring. There's the spring. So if I let go, it spring loads to wide open throttle. And the reason why you would want that wide open throttle is because if you got disconnected, anything going to the throttle control in the cabin, tell you what, I think I'd rather have my aircraft go wide open throttle than go to an idle. I think that would be horrible. So I can fly around a wide open throttle. That wouldn't bother me so much. And if I was coming in for a landing, I could just, once I knew I'd made the airport, I could turn off the engine. Too like a coup switch, where you turn it off and back on. It'd be hard on the engine, but I guess it's better than crashing somewhere. I want to notice the way that this shaft is. Remember I talked to you about the new style with the serrated shaft on it? Something I was just thinking about. See, let me see. Move that back over here. Go full screen. All right, see how that has the serrations on it, and it's absolutely positively locked together.
Yeah.
Okay. This one does not have that. This one just clamps down, and what was happening is this screw was coming loose, or the shaft was coming, the arm was coming loose from the shaft. And so you can imagine if the throttle stayed in one place and you were moving the shaft, this back and forth, and the throttle didn't move. And that's what was happening. So they came up with an airworthiness directive that you had to wire them the way this is actually wired. So notice that it goes around the screw, it goes around the arm, through the screw, and then attaches to this piece here, which is separate, so that you're actually safety wired this arm on in some way. So if the screw came loose, at least it would be safety wired to the secondary arm, which is pinned to this. So that was just an airworthiness directive they had. We have the idle mixture control that says R and L on it, which stands for right and left.
Rich and lean.
Rich and lean, okay. Carburetor bowl drain right there. So on annual inspections, 100-hour inspections, you want to pull that out and drain out any water that might have accumulated in the bottom of the bowl. As where with the Marvel Shoveler, the screen was way at the bottom. This screen is actually right here inside this one. It's supposed to be anyway. I don't know if I can get this one out. Yes, I have a big crescent wrench. Actually, it's not a crescent wrench, it's an Olympia wrench. And I think it's too tight. Yep, too tight. I didn't think to do that one earlier. Okay, so, and we have the idle mixture screw right here. So that is just a stop that stops this from how far it closes. All right, let's take a look inside. So this one's a little more complicated. Not sure why it is my dogs decide to lose their poo every night about this time. Actually, I do know as the sun goes down, I usually go outside with Zeus and run with him. I don't run, I stand in one spot and he runs. But this is our mixture control. Rich and lean, often says R and L down here too. Yep, L, R, oops, R, L, which does not stand for right and left. All right, 4 screws, they come out. This just lifts right out. And much different than the Stromberg, in that the Stromberg, we had all the float mechanism inside here, but now the float mechanism is attached to this. And the way you measure the floats on this is you just put it upside down and you measure the distance right here. And so it tells you to take a drill bit with the gasket in place and you measure it out near the edge and you measure that clearance right there. And if the clearance is not adequate, you bend the little tab up in here. There's different styles now. This has a cotter pin that goes in a little tiny hole right there, but the cotter pin's already out. So I can just pull the pin out, pull the pin out, and there we go. You can see the needle and seat, a whole lot smaller than the other one, that is for sure. And then the gasket will come out. Set that aside. So we have our float mechanism. I just realized something I managed to get from my office. I can find it. There we go. The floats. These are what the floats used to look like. They were brass. And these are really, really lightweight. They weigh almost nothing, but you can see how this one's already getting crushed. And one of these, I think, had some fluid in it, but these are the old brass style. And then for a while they had this was the old composite style. These are just plastic composite. I don't know, there's some reason they thought these weren't any good. And then they went to the brass and then they thought, well, those aren't any good. So then they went to the plastic and they said, well, those aren't any good. So they went to the brass and they said, well, those aren't any good. And then they went to the composite that are blue. But I like this one here. I don't know if you can see this, but you can hear it. And where's my flashlight? And that's the light above me is too bright, but you see there's something in there. That one's full of fuel. So it's got a hole in it and it filled full of fuel and it sank. So that's not good. So those are the old floats. All right, so we have, we can do the same thing we did before, Venturi. So this right here, this is a two-piece Venturi. This is the one that comes out and we still have inside the big Venturi. So the big one and the smaller one, the inner one. So I'll just take that out for now, set it aside.
Kevin,
Yeah.
is that the Venturi that gets 16?
What's that? That's the one that would get adjusted.
Okay.
But now it's just one piece. It just, this doesn't come out. It's molded to the one that's on the inside. You can press the inside. Let me see. We can take this out. Hey, here's the main discharge nozzle right here. These come out a little bit easier and they're more available. Oh, there we go. So if we wanted to do the same thing we did before and do a passageway and say, okay, how does everything flow through here? We could do the same thing. So we would start with the fuel inlet. I gotta find the fuel inlet. Fuel inlet is over here. So it goes fuel inlet through a screen, just like before. Check the screen every 100 hours or annual inspection. It's gonna come out of the needle seat, but it's upside down this time. And the needle's going to, oops, we showed you fit inside there and I'm having a hard time getting enough room. So out of the needle seat, past the needle, it's going to fill up the bowl. And when the bowl fills up, the floats come up, shut off the fuel. Now we have fuel in the fuel bowl. All right. So to get into the rest of the carburetor, it starts by going through this little passage right there. I don't think that I have here that I can show you that. I just have a box of stuff I stole I didn't go through yet. You know what that is?
Needle.
A plastic seat.
That's the
Plastic needle.
Delrin one out of the Stromberg, the old Strombergs. I told you it was a white plastic, so that's it, Delrin. Okay. I was hoping I had another one of these right here, but I don't. So that right there is the valve that sits down in that seat down in there. So when you turn the mixture control, it's just going to turn the valve. And that valve is going to allow fuel to go down in or not down in. Boy, it's really dark down in there, and I don't think I can show it to you. Maybe. See that? So anyway, you can see the side is cut out. And so the side down that's facing you is cut out.
And that's flexible, right? You said last time?
Oh yeah. So now, there you go. Now you can see how it's cut out down in there. So the fuel enters that cutout down there. And then this right here, yeah, it's totally flexible. And this fits down in there. And this right here is going to face towards the cutout when it's open. And then I go that way and it's going to cut it off. Did I go the right way? Rich, you go this way actually, that way. And it's going to cut off the fuel that goes down in. So as long as that's wide open, that's the biggest spot. So fuel's going to go down inside of this, the mixture seat, we'll call it, mixture seat. And then it makes a very short trip right up to this right here. So it doesn't go very far from right there to right there. And the fuel is going to come up that tube. It's going to go into this. This is the main metering jet right there at the very end of this. So if we take a look at it, we have main metering jet. You have whole, right here, these are threads. These are threads. That's the main metering jet. I'm sorry. Main metering jet, threads, hole, threads. There's another little hole right there, a couple little holes there all the way down. So we have a bunch of holes.
What if it has 2 threads on it?
Well, I'm going to show you.
Hey guys, I have a sorry for the interruption. My internet went down. Am I connected?
What's
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
My
Yeah, you're
internet went in and out, and I'm trying to see if I'm connected.
You're connected.
Okay, because I had to go to the garage and fix it.
Okay. So the threads are here to isolate this area from here and here. So we have the main metering jet here, threads, holes, threads. So this is separate from something else. So we're going to see where that goes. And then we have some holes here and then the discharge nozzle here. Okay, so fuel is coming through here, up here, through the main metering jet and out. That is the main discharge path right there. And we'll stick with that. So now we know we need to have some air bleeds, right? And this is where this one gets rather complicated. I'm gonna put these two right here and we can start. I don't want to start here. Start up here. All right, there's a little screen right here. And I'm just gonna take and pop this screen out so that we have access to what's in there. There we go. And I brought some wire in because normally I would use a flashlight and I would like shine this through and you might be able to see that that actually has light coming out over here. Let's see if I can do it. But I thought maybe if I had wire, wire is good for teaching, but you shouldn't do it on an airworthy carburetor. So there's a hole here and if I can do it right, it goes all the way through. Problem with live TV, right? There you go. That goes all the way through. And oh, I had it right there a second ago. I could actually see down in there. And we can also see that this passage also goes down there and I can see the wire going through. I don't think you guys can, but that goes through. This right here does not do that. This has one passage that goes this way. It faces,
what about the small hole?
What's that?
What about the small hole right next to
here?
it? Yeah.
Okay. Well, I haven't got that far yet. So I'll get that far. So we have this passage, and that part. 1, 2, 3. They're all interconnected. All right. And then this one is drilled this way. That one comes out right behind the Venturi. So if I were to shine a light in there, I can see it. I'm sorry you can't, but yeah, but it comes out. It's a very short hole right inside the Venturi. So bam, there it is. Hits the back of this Venturi. So we have that. Now let's take a look at this one here. Where does this one go? All right, so if I look down there, boy, I can't really see it go much of anywhere. Oh, yep, it's too hard to see. Can't figure out what that one is. So we can come back to that one, or I could just tell you what it is. No, I'm gonna just play it out like I didn't know. So if I'm like, well, I don't know where that one goes. All right, I'm gonna come back and look at this, and I'm gonna line up these holes, and I'm gonna say, all right, so I just verified this one had a little screen, and it went behind the Venturi, and that's gonna line up with this. So what I know is that behind the Venturi then is atmospheric air. So if atmospheric air comes into here, and there's a little screen, you can't see that little screen there, and then it lines up with this, and that has a very tiny little calibrated looking hole that goes straight down. In fact, I can't even stick that 032 in there, but I know it goes straight down. And if I were to look inside of here, I can actually see, sorry, I can't get it for you guys. I can actually see a little hole where it comes out of. Let's see if I can get that. There. Does that help? So, no, I'm sorry, I can't quite get it where you can see it. But anyway, just trust me. This hole right here goes straight down inside of here. So let's think that through a little bit. I've got ambient air here, here, straight down into here. So what do you think that is?
Bleed air.
Air bleed.
That's my main air bleed. Well, at least it is an air bleed. All right. So now I've got a main air bleed right there. Well, let's think that through. So I've got this right here with threads here. And so I've got air around here. So you know what? I'm going to call that my main air bleed. So main air bleed comes from behind the Venturi, past the screen, through this hole, through a calibrated orifice right there. That's very small little orifice, straight down into these holes and out there. These holes out there. Main air bleed. So now we just solved my main air bleed problem. I know where that's coming from, and I know that this is my main metering jet, and so I knew the fuel came through here. So once again, the fuel passage is in the screen, out of the seat, into the float bowl, fills up the float bowl, goes down through this metering sleeve, through the metering sleeve, very short passage into the main metering jet, up through here and out. And at the same time, this is sitting in there, air comes down through here, hits these holes. That's my air bleed. And there we go. That is the main system right there. Everybody followed that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, let me see if I can do this here. Let's try this. You guys should be able to see that. All right. This is the MA4. Right now I'm working on an MA3 SPA. This is MA4 SPA. It's just a little bit bigger. All right. So what did I say here? I said fuel comes in through the screen, past the needle, fills up the bowl. When it comes through the bowl, it comes through this little channel right here and down, through the main metering jet, through the main discharge nozzle, and the fuel goes out. The main air bleed comes from behind the Venturi, through a little hole that was drilled in. This doesn't really show it well. Through a little hole, down past a little screen. It was drilled straight down, over into here and out. So that looks appropriate. I don't know if anybody sees anything a little bit different than what I saw, but I think that looks pretty good. All right, now let's talk about the idle circuit. Idle circuit. Well, we know fuel only has one way out of this bowl, and it's right through that the metering sleeve. So through the metering sleeve, and I know that it's only got one passage drilled, and so it's going to come right up through this the main discharge nozzle. But wait a minute, it's got to go somewhere else, right? There we go. So I was looking for this. These are outlet holes. So these outlet holes, actually, fuel comes into the main metering jet. It would normally go this way, but now it's got another passage. It can come out of here. And so it's going to come out of here, and it's going to go up here. So this is drilled down there to way down there, now towards the bottom. That's why it's in the back. So this one's on the bottom. This one's more towards the top where the air came in. So this is my air. And this is my idle tube or idle jet. So fuel comes up here through the idle jet. It's the back hole to right there. So you're asking what that hole did in the back? That's what that is. Fuel is coming up here and that way down there. That fuel line right there is in line with, oh, I wish I could show you this one. Get some light on there. All those holes. See all those holes back there?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 holes right there. 1, 2, 3, 4 holes. Right? Those holes line up with that hole right there. So the fuel for the idle circuit is coming up here out of that little calibrated orifice into this hole, and it branches off into all 4 of those holes back in there. Close that. All 4 of those holes. So when this is closed, I can see in the camera 1.5 holes. So right now I've got 1.5 holes, or it's actually, I will say 2. So I have 2 holes right now that are spraying fuel at idle. And as I open this up a little bit, I'm going to have 3 holes. Now 4 holes spraying fuel. Now I'm going to transition onto the main system. So right now those 2 holes are spraying fuel. What are they bottom to that I've got covered? What are they doing?
Taking in the air.
They are air bleeds, additional air bleeds, but additional air bleeds. Well, wait a minute. Then we have to have an air bleed going into the idle system somehow. Idle needs an air bleed too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, because when all 4 of those are open, then none of them are air bleeds. We got to find an air bleed. Well, if we backtrack just a little bit, this was an air bleed that went straight down to the main discharge.
Mhm.
Right? Okay. What you can't see probably on the camera is that there's a passageway that's drilled at an angle. So it's at an angle like this. Maybe I need to get a better camera.
Yeah, an HD one, please.
4K.
Okay. I'll order one actually, because I was going to help my son with something. So I'll get an HD camera.
You can probably get it tomorrow.
What's that?
You can probably get it tomorrow from Staples. They restock.
Yeah, maybe somebody ought to send me an email on which one to get or something. Don't message me on the chat. Oh yeah, I guess you can because it saves the chat. I have to go back and find it. So,
I'll
all
email
will
it to you. I
email
have
you
an
one.
idea.
right, yeah, a cheap.
4K 60 frames.
Okay.
Don't
So anyway, it's drilled backwards through the same hole. This was the air bleed from before that way. Now it's backwards. It just lines up with this idle tube in here. So this idle tube goes up, out. There we go. We've now covered our main system and our idle system. So our off idle and our idle. We found the fuel passageway and we found all the idle air bleeds. Everybody followed?
Yep.
All right. We have a couple of other issues though. We know that we need to vent the float bowl somehow. It can't be sealed. So we need to find a float bowl passageway somewhere. Well, it is drilled here through here. And that's where I started with this passage that just goes through like that. All right. So we just have to find out where it's vented. Now, this particular hole, the middle hole, which you would think, okay, well, that goes to the back of the Venturi. Wouldn't that be nice if it worked? Yeah, well, it doesn't appear to go that way right now. So I do have this tube right here. Interestingly enough, well, I'm getting way out of line, but some of these carburetors actually have a calibrated orifice right down there. That's kind of difficult to figure. It doesn't go to anything. So I've seen some weird things on these carburetors. This one's been taken out. So float bowl vent. Where's my float bowl vent? All right, so that goes there, that goes to there. Should tie into this. Because this hole right here corresponds to right there, and that does nothing. So it vents through this one here. Oh, I remember how. Okay, so it doesn't go anywhere, and it doesn't do anything. And so I don't know what that is, except to tell you that some carburetors, they use the same castings to do different things. And some carburetors, this is actually vented over towards the inside of the Venturi, outside of the Venturi, and that is your economizer system. But this one doesn't have it. And that's why I have the other one, because it does. So this one, those passages, pretty much the three are connected and do anything. So where am I getting my event? Right here. So I have, I could have showed you this. So I have a vent right there. A little hole. Trying to make it so you guys can see it. So there's a hole right here that goes on the back side of the Venturi. That is ambient air. And on this side, I've got another hole that goes to the back side of the Venturi. Again, ambient air. So float vent. All right, we solved all those problems. What's that?
Can you bring that out close to the camera just to see the holes?
Doesn't it get blurry? That looks blurry to me.
Yeah, I can still see the hole though.
Okay, that hole. So the other three, they don't seem to do anything. They don't go together. All right, and they're behind. Those holes go behind the Venturi. Okay, so we solved those issues. And we already know how the mixture works. We did talk about that, but now we can talk about the accelerator pump. So the accelerator pump, as I told you, it's on a spring. And I can see that, but now you can see how it actually works. So the way this works, it's solid to the throttle arm and throttle shaft. So it moves in conjunction with that. There's 3 holes for adjustment. And the book explains to you how if you want more fuel per opening, you pick another one of these holes. I believe this is the medium, and then I think this is the, I don't know, I can't remember if this is the low and that's the high or high-low. I always look in the book. So those connect the medium-sized hole. Never mind, I see. Okay, so that so it moves like that. All right, so this obviously goes into here. I picked one with a decent packing on it, but even so, this packing is pretty dead. Normally it's a very tight seal in there. This is not a tight seal. So that's going to go in there. And so when I am at full throttle, it has already pushed the fuel out. So when I back off to idle, it's going to pull up, and in here it is going to then want to suck fuel. So it does. It sucks fuel through this little hole. It's like working in a mirror. Through this little hole right here. And that hole goes through this mechanism where there's a little check valve in there. So it goes through that hole, fills up inside of here, through that little check valve. And then when I accelerate, and it plunges down, it will plunge down. It will go, flashlight. It will go out through this check valve, through a passage that you can't see too well, into this tube right here. And then that tube right there will squirt you in the eye. And that's what the purpose of that is for. And that is really all there is to that. So pretty simple, huh?
Pretty much.
Simple. Oops. We'll do that. All right, so what did we just talk about? We were doing the idle system, right? So fuel, we said, comes through the screen, past the needle and seat, fills up the float bowl. From the float bowl, it does go through the metering assembly, the mixture metering valve sleeve, up through the main metering jet, into this area where there's one set of threads here and one here. So this is the middle thread section here, unthreaded. Out those holes, up the idle metering tube. And I said, well, wait a minute, we got to get air from somewhere. Remember, this is an MA4, so it might be a little different. Oh, there it is, right there. That uncolored tube, I forgot to color it, is that one that's drilled backwards. So remember, I said the screen was right here. And so that comes right through there, mixes with air. There's the little orifice right there that you can see. Switches to the top half, drilled in, and had 1, 2, 3, we had 4. This only has 3 deliveries. So this one has primary, secondary, and tertiary idle delivery. We had a 4th one. And so when the throttle is this way, right here, remember everything above it is delivering fuel, everything below it is probably going to work as an additional air bleed. This one doesn't say that, but we kind of know that that's what's happening. And I think that was all we have on this one because it doesn't show the accelerator pump. That's the big one.
Kevin,
Yeah,
this one has a screen for the fuel.
it sure does. Let me get out of here. It is right behind here. So if I pull this out, it's going to be in there.
Oh, is it?
It was really tight and I couldn't get it. Some of them are missing. No, this one's in there. It's a long screen. It's a long finger string, goes all the way back in here.
Okay.
All right, questions on that one?
I think it's pretty interesting how it looks like in the camera you can see the staining on the inside of the Venturi and how where the 4 holes are. You can kind of see the airflow going.
Well, you can see it real well. If you're sitting here, it's very obvious that, yes, you can see the fuel staining, the cleaning. Oops. Put together right. I guess we should put together right.
And I feel like this helped so much. This helped a lot to try like understand, to solidify all of the ideas you talked about.
I think you're just saying that so you don't have to write notes. I'm not done.
No, I see some head nods over there.
What, about the notes? Yes, no more notes. All right.
About the ideas.
What do we got? 732 there. So this, it just sits here. That's why I said they actually had problems with them. They come out. This one was actually giving me problems getting loose. So I was trying to put it together. So, all right. So the hard part of all this, number one, is to remember that if you pull a screen out like that, you ought to put it back in. So I guess that's a hard part, number one. Screen back. You know, and it's this stuff, it's not magic. And quite honestly, everything I just did, you know, I haven't opened up one of these things in over a year. And it's not like I'm some carburetor genius. And I'll fess up that when I rebuilt these things, I honestly didn't really pay much attention to what every single little passage did. You don't have to know that. You just have to know how to put them together properly and measure things and use finesse and how stuff goes. Like, for instance, how this little jet, that little jet has to sit inside of the Venturi and not outside. You have to know that be careful with this and lubricate it when you put it in. And most importantly, you have to make sure that this mixture sleeve actually makes it down in there. So it's not the easiest thing in the world. You have to get it started, but once it's in there, boom, it's in there. And that's not a big deal. Like I said, you can now blow in it and move this back and forth, and you'll hear just a little bit of a tone change sometimes. So, but this is all something that every one of you has the ability to just take something like this apart and just sit with it with a piece of safety wire, with sometimes I'll use shop air, you know that, a flashlight, and just start thinking about it. So once you have the basics, it's not that big of a deal just to figure this stuff out. Although, can't get the dang screw in. There we go. I don't want to leave it all apart across my desk and lose all the pieces. All right, while you're watching me do this, Janet's going to tell you an interesting story. All right, Janet, go. Tell me an interesting story.
Go ahead, Janet.
Oh no, you guys don't want to hear what I had to deal with over lunch.
No,
Steve,
You're
this
not
is Janet. Come on, Steve.
We don't want to hear, Stephen. Nothing personal, but we're not quite certain where the story could end up. And
It probably starts on a toilet.
I was thinking the same thing.
Into my house.
Flush your lottery ticket.
Oh my gosh, that was so crazy.
Is that so?
Okay, mute. So I told you the other one. I keep saying, "Oh, that's the much bigger one. That's the much bigger one."
Oh, Jeanette said sorry. She's talking to his kid. Her kid.
All right, this is the MA4-5.
Oh.
So this right here would be on up to the 172, although this doesn't have the accelerators. This is probably more like an much smaller airplane, but this is probably the one that Harry has on his airplane. So you can see that is significantly bigger. Get it in there. So this is more like for an 0470. And this is, so this one, I'm not going to do this one. I haven't taken one of these apart in many years, but I'm going to do this. I'll get a video going on this one because it's actually rather interesting. A lot is different about it. One of the things that's very different is it does have a needle up in here that is actuated by the actual throttle arm, which varies the pressure on the float, which varies the pressure on the float, which affects if it's rich or lean. And that thing's kind of a booger to set unless you have a special tool. That used to be a project at school, I should tell you. And it was like this horrific, like 2-hour ordeal. And oh man. And if you don't have this tool, if you have the special tool, it says like something, insert the tool, screw it all the way in and then back it out 4 turns. And if you don't have it, you have to take like 16 different measurements, do some math, do something else. And it's like, are you kidding me? We have the tool. So, all right. So this one here is just the MA3A. A lot more simplistic just in the fact that it doesn't have the accelerator pump. So what kind of accelerating system do you suppose it has?
Well,
There you go. Now, if we looked at the Stromberg, the first one we did, I don't really see much of an economizer system unless you want to, like we talked about, account for the fact that the vent tube is in the throttle area. So it vents from the throttle area, and you can see how that might act as some sort of economizer system. This particular one we just looked at a minute ago, the MA3SPA, I cannot identify any sort of accelerator system, economizer system on it at all, economizer or power enrichment. I just can't. Did I remember? This one here.
What about the venting to the float?
The venting to the float happened behind the Venturi, so there'd be no change ever.
Okay, got you.
Yeah. Okay. So this one I remember being a little bit different. So everything about this is really the same as what we just looked at. The only difference is from the outside is it doesn't have the accelerator on it. So we're going to assume that it has an accelerator well, which it kind of does. All right. So everything else, same. So we measure the floats the same way, come apart the same way. And everything in here, this looks exactly the same as the other one. It just doesn't have the, again, the accelerator on it. So, and that's really about the difference. But we can start looking at some of the air passages, which of course are very difficult for you guys to do. It is this one. By the way, do you know the difference between a snap-on and a Craftsman socket? Besides the price. There's a reason why I have a snap-on and a Craftsman here. The Craftsman are better for carburetors. The flutes, if you will, the flats go all the way down to the end of all the way down to here.
Snap-on doesn't?
It goes in about 1/2 inch. So like for the Stromberg I was just working on, you have to have a Craftsman. So that's why I have that one. So.
Does snap-on doesn't count with the flutes all the way down?
Nope, doesn't. All right, so main discharge nozzle, looking the same. Main metering jet. This is the passageway off to the idle system. Here's the air bleeds. That's all the same. So we could go through this all over again and we're pretty much going to get the same thing. So I can tell you the fuel system on this is identical to the fuel system on the other one. Where things are going to get a little bit different is the air system on this one. Flashlight, here we go. There it is. All right, let me see if I can find what I want to show you in here. See this right here? While I'm thinking about it.
Is that a lead plug?
That is a lead plug. This one has the lead plug removed and it has this attached to it. This is the carburetor air temperature bulb to tell you if you're about to have a freezing condition. So some of them have a lead plug. Some of them are actually drilled out. Let me see. Maybe I'm just going to be lying to you guys today. Maybe this one doesn't have what I wanted. We'll see where this ends up with us. Okay, so, oh yeah, this one does. So, okay, so again, now we've got these holes here, but we're going to have to match them up. The other one, this was blanked off. There was nothing here. And so if we kind of take what we've already learned, we know that this right here, line them up this way. All right, this forward one, this forward one, this forward one here lines up with a, let's see if I can make it work out. That one on the other carburetor was drilled right inside of here to the back side of the Venturi. Well, now I don't have anything on the back side of the Venturi. In fact, if I look around in there, well, I don't see a single hole down in there. Kind of peculiar, but there it is. There's not a single hole in there. So I've got to find a place where I'm going to get air. Was out of here before, now it's not. So looking down in here, you can see that? It's cross drilled. So you can see the light coming out of there. You can see the light in the middle of the hole. And you can also see it in this one. So all 4 of these holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, every single one of them is drilled together and connected. Now I did tell you before, and this is weird, if I look all the way down the bottom of this hole, and I can't get it for you guys to see it, it is bizarre. Down in there, it looks just like this one. It's got a brass plug with a spot for a screwdriver. And I think I've taken them out before, and I can't, let me see. It doesn't, that I know of, it didn't go to anything. It was like really weird. And I've seen them before on these, so I don't know what the heck. And the manual doesn't talk about it, the overhaul manual. So I'm like, well, I don't know. I think it's probably plastic that does something else because there's nothing drilled there. Oh, wait a minute. I think I remember this one does. Okay. May have spoke too soon. Okay. I remember what I wanted to do. All right. It's coming back to me. It's a danger of speaking out loud. Okay. So these are all 3 cross drilled. So where am I getting air then for my main air bleed? Well, we came from here, which is attached to here, which goes down that way. So this is the going down air. So the air's got to find its way from somewhere from around here. And if I remember correctly, this goes down this one to a little brass plug. So far I'm not seeing any way around here where air is getting into here. I don't have any holes here. I don't have any holes back here, just this one here with cross drilled down. But I did find something kind of interesting. If I look down in here, boy, it's hard for me to show you guys. I've got, oh, there we go. 1, 2, 3 holes. What are those holes for?
Idle circuit.
Idle circuit.
There we go. We know it's idle circuit. You see a 4th hole offset?
Yeah.
Okay. That 4th hole, right, let me see. Right down there, that offsets to this one right here, straight down. Those 2 match up. And on the other side of that is that, that hole that I was talking about. So I can't actually put anything through to go through that. It's just too far away. But I believe those are completely interconnected. I can't prove it right now. I think I have before. We just need some fluid or something. So I do in fact have air through that 4th hole. I'm going to turn it around so you guys can see it. So when am I going to see that 4th hole? Right now, that 4th hole is hidden. So if that 4th hole is hidden way down below, and remember, this is the fuel and air come out towards you guys right there. What to keep with our color scheme, or what kind of air pressure do we have down there?
Blue.
Ambient.
Ambient air pressure. So now I've got ambient air pressure coming up through that hole, inside there, going to my float bowl, I'd say. All right. And if I open this up to here, kind of a mid-range, it's going to, I would say, maybe lessen some of the air pressure. And then as I open it up more, maybe increase. The book does not talk about this. So these are some of the things that I'm just kind of surmising, especially when it's right there. The plate is lined up against it. I think that's going to create more of a suction on there and really decrease the pressure on the float bowl, or possibly here it's going to decrease because now it's open to manifold pressure, which is going to be a suction. And so through this range, once it aims at it, all the way through an opening of about here, it's definitely become part of the manifold pressure. And that's going to decrease the pressure, which is going to put a small suction, if you will, on top of the float bowl, which will economize it. Open this all the way up and you're going to get maximum pressure. Maximum pressure is going to put pressure back on the float bowl, which is then going to push fuel out, enriching it. So now we're back to more of a power enrichment, I guess, if you will, at that point. So book does not talk about that. So it's just a theory that I've kind of come up with on my own there. So hopefully I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Okay. So those are what those 3 passages, or 4 passages, 1, 2, 3, 4 are all about. At the same time, see the forward one here, forward one there, goes to this one here, which goes down and feeds the air into the main discharge nozzle, which is also, I believe, drilled backwards. Yes, it is drilled backwards as well, to go to the idle circuit. So from here down, it's going forward back and feeding the air bleed. On this side, it's feeding the carburetor both sides. This hole right here is the fuel coming up, going to the fuel here, the idle tube. Actually, it's coming up the idle tube this way into the 4 holes. So that's really all I see about this one that's any different than anything. But I really think that offset hole adds a whole nother interesting complexity to everything. And I think what my memory is, that little, I told you about that plug down there. I've seen them in the MA3 SPAs with no offset hole drilled into the casting, which I thought was really bizarre. That's what I was looking for. So other than that, that's all I see. Questions on this one?
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
The side holes that interconnect the other holes, is that drill in an angle?
Yeah. Now, this is something interesting. Yeah, why is it drilled at an angle? Well, the answer is quite simple. They had to get a drill bit in. Can't drill this way, can't drill straight. They had to get the drill bit in. So the machine actually just came at an angle because that's how the drill bit fit. So
okay.
you'll always see stuff like that. And then so it went that way and then drilled this way. So
I thought because the cavity on the other side was bigger, but
no.
I think
No. And sometimes I'll ask people on orals, well, why do you have one here and then one over here? And they'll say, well, it's to vent the right side and the left side. And I'm like, because they can see the casting, how you have the right side and the left side. And I'm like, yeah, but if you look over here, it's all one. So don't say that. One of the checks that you guys have to do, well, anybody in the field, but I ask you guys to do it, is when you put these together to do the appropriate checks per the manual. And that
Get your
is,
gasket.
I know, I was thinking about that. Normally I don't talk while I build stuff. The nice thing is this does take a cotter pin, but the way it fits in here for instructional use, it doesn't fall out. So I don't have to. All right. So the things I have you do is to verify the float level height with the, so you put the gasket on, you put it this way, you check it down here. I don't have you adjust it. And then the other thing you do, I don't have one. At school, we have one of these bowls where this entire bottom is cut off. And so you slide it on and you actually have access to go all the way around, and you're supposed to, then you put this fake bottom on, which has no bottom, and you take a drill bit and you go all the way around and you make sure that you have proper clearance on these, because this bracket down here is actually screwed on with 2 screws, and you could get it a little bit crooked, and then the float bowl will actually touch and stick the floats. And so that'd be really bad. So that's one of the checks you have to do when you put these back together. Whoa, it's 7:50. So I
Where-
guess that's it for
where
tonight.
That went by quick.
Where's the
Enjoy that as
well?
much as I did.
Like this, it helps a lot.
Well, that's what I wanted to hear. So, yeah, if you loved it, you could always say, you could send a message to the very nice lady who gave me permission to go. Carrie Bray is her name. She gave me permission to go to the school today.
How do we message her?
Thank you.
You can always message anybody I mentioned at school by looking up their name and faculty, because I don't necessarily have her email with me. But
Yeah, because this is so much helpful than your pictures.
what's that?
This is so much helpful than your pictures.
So now you're making fun of my picture
Or drawings.
and my drawings.
Actually, our drawings are amazing, though.
Yeah.
Or
That
writings.
line.
And so, yeah, it's Carrie Bray is the one who let me do that. She's the vice president of something or another. I'm going to stop the video, but I'll keep talking to you guys. Or the recording, I should. Oh, good, I did start it. So more. Stop recording.